So it's a pleasure to be here at CAST, located in Soma, Filipinas, one of San Francisco's 10 city-designated cultural districts. My presentation is called Cultural Districts, a Tool for Community Self-Determination. You can go to the next slide, please. So this is me. I'm a cultural worker based in Oakland, California, Huchun, it's the Lisjan Ohlone People's Land. And I come from Chile with roots in Mapu, which is Mapuche territory in the south of Chile. My work bridges cultural revitalization, healing, and systemic change to co-create a more just and joyful world. I'm a founder of Caracol Collective, which is a framework based on practical tools and resources to support community leaders in organizing from the inside out, centering ancestral knowledge, thematic embodiment, and self-sovereignty as pathways for well-being and collective liberation. And I became attuned to the needs of this sector and historically marginalized culture bearers and artists and workers by working at La Peña Cultural Center for 8 years. And it continues to be one of the greatest educational experiences I've had around working with community and what it really takes for us to feel that we have agency in our communities that are our close-knit communities and also like larger systems like governments. Next slide, please. All right, so this is what I'm gonna go over today. I'm gonna give you a little bit of context. I'm gonna give you the problem, the solution, a few case studies, some blueprints that I think are really key for us to follow to implement it, some of the seguidas y ones. All right, so why did I apply for the GAAP fellowship? This is the context part. So I want to know, how can we create sustainable support for culture bearers and community-rooted artists? I kept seeing at La Peña, and in my community for 8 years and for more years as somebody practicing cultural traditions, that hip-hop, cumbia, Caribbean and Haitian dance, West African dance, Afro-Peruvian dance, capoeira Angola, the martial arts, all the different cultural traditions are traditions of resistance. And cultural bearers are the leaders of this. Culture bearers offer powerful community solutions. I came to see people being able to solve houselessness, childcare, really community resourcing each other and figuring out the solutions. We got us. That really it was the sentiment when we were together on a consistent basis, knowing each other, building trust, and understanding what we need. We create lasting networks based on cultures of mutual aid, reciprocity, interdependence. We create belonging. We support in creating meaning together. And what is this world we've inherited? And what is our role in it? So, and then of course, we're resisting cultural erasure, especially during these times. Next slide. So when our cultural leaders are well-resourced, our communities thrive. I saw this just consistently and anecdotally for myself for so many years. And I wanted to be able to figure out, how do we create these sustainable solutions for the artists and culture bearers and the ecosystems that sustain them? How do we create more infrastructure for them so that he could just continue to support ourselves as community? And this fellowship offered a unique opportunity to deepen my knowledge in advocacy, develop a strategy to secure these resources, and create thriving communities. All right, so what is the problem? All right, so after many months, I landed on this core issue, which is that Oakland faces deep systemic challenges: gentrification, housing insecurity, racialized economic inequity, crime and violence, causing the displacement of the people that created the culture, which are symptoms of a broader problem, the erosion of community self-determination. Next slide, please. So this is just some data of what we see all over the Bay Area, but Oakland specifically, the African-American population, from what was almost 50% of Oakland's population in 1980, in 2020, it was at 22%. Of the population. That's more than half decrease. This is a study here showing the small arts organizations, art and culture organizations of color in Oakland. And these are the ones at risk of displacement are in the blue. I'm sorry, the advanced gentrification is in the dark blue. Then you have folks that are in at risk of undergoing displacement. And then, I'm so sorry. The different stages of displacement that are happening in Oakland's arts and culture organizations of color. This is from 2018. So Oakland has one of the highest violent crime rates. Sorry, this is the bummer part of my presentation. It's the crime rate is actually one of the highest in the nation. 1 in 20 people are victims of one of these crimes of violent crime and property crime in 2023. So we're stressed out in Oakland, and this is the stressor index, 21 stressor indicators that include health and the environment, housing, education, poverty, and the criminal justice system's involvement in our communities. The community stress leads to a lot of different other issues and impacts the well-being of individuals. Next. So what do we need? I mean, this is a lot of problems, right? And to create this community well-being, to lower stress, to reduce violent crime, to retain Oakland's cultural heritage, its keepers, its organizations. And so what I think we need is to get back into balance. I think we need to find our roots, and we need community self-sovereignty. So I propose cultural districts can serve as a tool to tackle these issues and many more by centering cultural heritage, by doing it through community self-determination. And this cultural districts cannot innately do this, but the right framework can. So quick case studies, New York City and Medellin, Colombia. So in the left here, we have studies showing that in New York City, there was, when there's arts infrastructure and cultural resources in the most dangerous neighborhoods, they are directly linked with community wellness. Like there's pockets of light, there's pockets of where the crime reduces because there's access to cultural resources. So 18% decrease in serious crime, kids are doing better in school, there's less childhood trauma, and because arts and culture helps break cycles. In Medellin, Colombia, it went from the #1 murder capital in the world, quite literally, in 1991, to in 2008, having a 96% drop in homicides. And this was a phenomenon. It's one of the biggest phenomena we've seen where arts and culture is implemented at a high level. And the other part that's key about the Medellin, Colombia case study is that the investments were made with community participation and residents shaped the transformation. All right, next. So what's a blueprint? You know, what can we learn to be able to create, to be able to find what similar cities facing similar issues have done and how we might be able to implement these blueprints for Oakland. So I offer these 3 practical and key blueprints to create the infrastructure and framework for a successful community-led community cultural districts program for Oakland. All right, so the first part is, a third of my plan is Rashida Chase's cultural marketing toolkit. Yes, Rashida's my guest of honor. Basically. So this toolkit, fresh off the press, 2025, was graded by Rashida Chase. It's an existing comprehensive scaffolding for Oakland cultural districts. And I'll get into the details more later. Also, San Francisco's cultural district program model. And I go into the depths of this, but it goes from the language to their community process, to the way that it's got sustained funding, and to the way that the city departments collaborate. Then the third thing that I offer is a case study of one of the cultural districts in San Francisco, and there framework for self-governance that I think is really key for us to consider, and it's the Calle 24 governing model. Next. All right, so I'm not going to say this as well as Rashida can, but I'm going to try. So the Culture Keeper's Guide for Preserving Culture and Preventing Displacement and Upholding Belonging in Oakland focuses mostly on the Black Arts Movement districts. It consolidates existing official city policy and plans regarding arts and culture. It provides foundation and scaffolding for cultural infrastructure. It centers cultural heritage. I feel like it's checking off all of my marks. Centers cultural heritage. It's culturally relevant and authentic. It addresses displacement and gentrification directly. It aligns policy and delegates across city departments to build infrastructure. And it lists some next steps, such as like the asset mapping piece and all of this. So this toolkit is key, and it was thanks to the Cultural Strategy Program that Roberto Bedoya, he published it. So what we need? Well, we see that thanks to a lot of community advocacy, and this is directly from Rashida Chase's Culture Keeper's Guide, because of community advocacy, we were able to get the Downtown Oakland specific plan to list policies saying that there will be a citywide cultural districts program that will be established, as well as it names supporting the Black Arts Movement Business District. So while there are proclamations for the existing districts in Oakland, which there's 3 official ones, there's no formal process or plan to create a city-wide coastal district program. Next slide. And I quote Rashida Chase, formalizing the process of the creation of an officially recognized cultural district can streamline and build an equitable and community collaborative processes to formalize zoning codes, resolutions, and inclusion in other planning documents that support districts. And I end quotes. So, solution. Here is a handy little framework I came up with for making sure that we can really center community self-determination. And on the left, we have what I think is a city government's role in creating a community-led cultural district program. And on the right is the people's role in creating a community-led cultural district program. And you'll see that there's, of course, a lot of influencing and advocacy coming back and forth because we have to work together. So on the left, the city government's role to adopt charter language that protects vulnerable communities, to implement community processes that support us in identifying what kind of zoning and codes are needed for protection, sustained dedicated funding from the government, and support of city staff and legislators. People's role, develop a democratic grassroots governing body for each cultural district, ensure authentic stakeholder representation, because there's a lot of different types of folks in these cultural districts with different perspectives and needs, and then to build cross-sector community power to effectively advocate for the will of the people. So, yeah, that's it. Next slide. All right, sorry for all this language, but it was the only way I could really get my thought down because this is key. So there is a real opportunity here to create well-being and protect the cultural heritage of Oakland and its culture keepers. In order to do that, we must ensure that Oakland's cultural district's legislation has clear language that prioritizes community self-determination, supports community-led governance structures, and addresses displacement and justification head-on. With policy alignment, dedicated funding, and democratic self-governance, Oakland's cultural districts can become vital infrastructure for community-led solutions for housing, violence, health, education, cultural preservation, and the list goes on. San Francisco offers a blueprint for community self-determination and regeneration. Next slide, please. All right, so here's the next blueprint. So besides Rashida's toolkit, we have this, San Francisco's Cultural Districts Program, which they're doing a lot of things really well after a lot of investigation, how other cities do it. So the program is primarily managed through a partnership between the community and the city. It's housed in the mayor's Office of Housing and Community Development, which plays a coordinating role in collaboration with the Office of Economic and Workforce Development, San Francisco Planning, and the Arts Commission. Each individual cultural district also has a community-based group with its own leadership and advisory board. So these are the different areas that I'm going to go in more thoroughly now. All right, so the charter language, there's a direct quote here, but you'll basically see that it really focuses on groups that have historically been discriminated against, displaced in the past. And I think that this language is so key. In 2018, this is when this was implemented, and it was during President Trump's first presidency. And it cites in the definition and in the findings that this is the time for us to really protect, to put another layer of protection to our most vulnerable populations. And this is actually one of the ways that we can do that, by putting it in the city charter and utilizing culture districts to protect these communities. All right, next. All right, so then another thing that I want to bring up is San Francisco's process for community. So the community process framework that they use is called CHESS. It's a CHESS report, Cultural, History, Housing, and Economic Sustainability Strategy. And the report contains district needs in the following areas: historic preservation, housing and tenant protection, arts and culture, economic and workforce development, land use, and cultural competency. So in addition to the city charter language, centering cultural heritage, addressing displacement and protecting some of its most vulnerable populations, this CHESS report speaks with folks who have participated in this. Oh, sorry. Oh, I've spoken to folks who have been a part of this process, and they are essentially really happy with the way that how much grassroots organizing and outreach had to happen in order for all the various stakeholders to come together. So this is like the community role in making sure that this happens in these processes. Next. All right, and then the funding, of course. So Proposition E is the way that in 2018 also, so same time that the Cultural Districts Program was created, the Prop E was passed. And so this measure shifted 1.5% of the existing 8% base hotel tax to arts and cultural purposes. And that big bucket of money is distributed among many programs, including cultural districts, which get a guaranteed $250,000 per year. And there's 10 cultural districts. The Prop E hotel tax also created a separate pot of money called Cultural Equity Initiatives, which is a grant program specifically for those vulnerable populations. There are some cultural districts that are also getting state funding, which right now is just Calle 24, and of course there's philanthropy. Next. All right, so Calle 24 as a case study. So I'm so grateful to Eric Arguello, who's the founder and council president of Calle 24, who gave me his generous time to talk to me about Calle 24. And this is a third part of the blueprint. So cultural district is a designation, he says, but it is not a magic bullet solution. It gives us collective power to hunker down and advocate for our community needs. Next. And there's nothing, unless you have zoning and code, tailored to each area. He stressed that policy, zoning, and code, in order to provide layers of protection, are key. And one example of code that has been key for them is utilizing special use districts. Next. All right, so grassroots governance. So Calle 24 has 200 members. They begin as the Lower 24th Street Neighborhood and Merchants Association, and now are representing through committees, board and staff, and all these community-driven processes. They're representing a lot of different types of folks: residents, youth, artists, nonprofits, everything. Their mission, vision, and bylaws center cultural preservation. They're a 501c3 and they use a fiscal sponsor. They have biannual elections and annual elections with 2-year terms. And they're reporting to their membership yearly, and they just have like a really incredible governance model that I think is key to community self-determination. Next. All right. So Calle 24 has had a lot of impact at strengthening the collaboration between the city and the community. retaining the cultural heritage of the district, reduce gentrification and displacement, streamline advocacy efforts. They create accountability. They attract, retain, and support artists, creative entrepreneurs, and cultural enterprises. Tourism is on the community's terms. Transparent community governance processes, responsive community organizing, and community well-being has increased. So I'm almost done. This is my slide that is a breakdown of that Venn diagram that we saw earlier. So the Oakland arts and culture ecosystem needs to understand that, advocacy is what makes everything happen. So everything you see listed here, there's going to be advocacy efforts for everybody. And I'd like to get everybody's feedback on this part, because in my process of having this big question of how to create such infrastructural support for cultural bearers, I ended up landing cultural districts with the understanding that self-governance is key, and there are certain things that we can put into policy that can create those layers of protection for us. So, for example, making sure that we develop language for the city charter, that we have really clear language that's centering all the things that I've mentioned around the definition, findings, purpose, and goals for keeping and retaining community and centering cultural heritage. A community process that is adapted to Oakland, but is similar to the chess process. We also need funding for that community process, because it's going to require, a lot of grassroots efforts, but also somebody to really hold all of that. We're going to need sustained funding, and if we could identify it through a tax measure, but there's lots of other ways that could be done. Cultural districts and mayors are represented at Arts Coalition spaces. So when we're talking about how we're going to get funding for the entire arts sector, that there's the cultural districts representing themselves as getting a bucket of money. Then identifying what city departments the cultural district program should live in, develop cultural districts, community governance structures and infrastructure, and frameworks for community self-determination. And then, of course, let's support the existing cultural districts, even without having a full, citywide cultural districts program. We can still do that. And is one of them. So fund the next steps listed in the Culture Keepers Guide toolkit, identify what support other cultural districts need, and then bring them all to the table to discuss. All right. So how we begin is how we end. Oakland has the cultural clouds. We have the traditions of resistance. So let's own it and uplift it. I really believe that this is Oakland's moment. We have all the right people in the folks in office. We have a position for the manager, the CAD position, the cultural affairs manager position now. So let's use this momentum before another wave burns out the artists and the cultural workers who are not going to be able to stay we don't use this momentum now. So can you help us advocate for Oakland? And one wise person said to me, we are the last line of defense against fascism, and putting in these different layers of protection can really make sure that we can do that for Oakland. Thank you.
So much. Thank you so much. We have 3 minutes for questions, comments. I have a microphone to get so everyone can hear what you have to say. So anyone has something for Natalia? Thank you so much. That was amazing.
There's a question in the back.
Yes. All right. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anna Stricky. I work at San Francisco Arts Commission, and I'm so excited to see this presentation. I had no idea you were going to talk about the chess reports. I'm deeply involved in that process. So, I think this is just one of the ways that internal information does not get shared externally. It's fascinating to think to see if you see this as a model when I know all the problems. And I think one of the things that I struggle to think through and policy and how you create something like this is, for example, Prop E has limited line items, right? Like the line items are specific, limited amounts, and they're tied to the tax piece. But for the cultural districts, it's a set amount. Yeah. So as you add more districts, the cuts get smaller. And the way that the city interprets that is that amount is only for the chess report, because the chess report is the only thing the city is mandated to do. So there's no programming in the mind of the city. And sorry, I'm really in the weeds because I actually just did the African American Arts and Culture District chess report, so it's like very top of mind for me. But one of the things that this city gets sticky with is if there's a program of the city, but we have these external partners, but we have dedicated funding, how do you ensure an equitable and like accessible process that isn't kind of like a under the table handoff, right? Is it a competitive process or is it always the same people? If it's always the same people, then power gets concentrated in weird ways and it doesn't flow. So that's not a problem I know the answer to, but I love that to be like part of this thinking.
Thank you.
So thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you, Anne.
There'll be a whole half-day conference just on your topic. That's so good. Does anyone else have a really quick comment, or Natalia, maybe what would you like to say now that you?
Oh gosh, just thank you so much to Rashida, to Roberto, to all the people, and I can't wait to hear what you have to say, like over a coffee or lunch, because I switched my project, and thinking about how to answer this, I switched my focus like halfway through and landed on cultural districts as being the best bet that we really have to answer these questions. So I wish I had more months to be able to present, but I envision that this is just the beginning and get the feedback and continue.
Yeah, that'd be so much. Yay.